Party of eminent domain. And this is for candidate Mike Bearden.
Thanks for the question, Matthew. That's very hypothetical. You'd have to give me some specifics. I've been very fortunate to run several very large, technically based organizations where decisions aren't always black and white, where things are gray, and where integrity and experience comes to the forefront first. Eminent domain is something that's constitutional and necessary to ensure that the infrastructure, which my whole life has been about for the last 40 years, of building anything you can imagine that you've seen. I've been involved in planning, conceiving, designing, or construction, and eminent domain is vital to that. But we have seen abuses across the country in eminent domain in recent years where we've been losing part of our society to folks who want to change and fundamentally turn our society over and make it something that it's not. This is on the leading edge of that. Without the specifics, Matthew, of knowing precisely what it is and the deal that you're talking about and what it means to the future of our county, I will not answer the question. I understand eminent domain. I built power plants, or was involved in building power plants, bridges, roads, sewer systems, water systems, schools, hospitals, county buildings, libraries, etc. It's vital to functioning of a complex society. We're no longer in that place where my daddy in Cassville felt like he could do whatever with his property and anybody else had no business getting involved in it. We put zoning in this county about 5 years too late, and we're still suffering the pain from that. Eminent domain is something that's...
Thank you, Mr. Reardon. You are out of time.
Candidate Tony Tidwell.
I don't think that's something you can get around if you're going to progress. It's bad going in there telling somebody, I need your property because we need this road, or we were talking about the airport earlier, you know, how are we going to expand? I mean, what if that's the only way we could do it, is go in there and say, well, this is the property, you know, we won't give you the fair market value. Of course, a lot of these people, several of my relatives are running this now with a situation on Highway 20 where they want to come in and take their property. They don't want to sell it, but sometimes it has to be done for progress, but it's got to be for the good of the county, not some particular special interest group. It's got to be for the overall good of the county.
Candidate Steve Taylor.
There's a word for eminent domain, and I think it's necessary evil. If you're the county commissioner and there's a really bad curve and people have gotten killed and there's a property owner there that just don't want to let you cross his property, then of course you would invoke eminent domain. But I respect property rights as much as anybody. I was raised on a farm, and we really, you know, and people are proud of their property, and it's their property, and they should be justly compensated if the government takes their property. But in cases of safety, of course, would come first. You would have to invoke eminent domain. In cases of economy sometimes, of course you couldn't invoke it. You couldn't take someone's farmland to build a shopping center on, but you could take a portion of that property if they're not willing to part with it to improve the safety of the citizens of the county.
Candidate Mike Abernathy.
Invoking eminent domain is what's happening to me right now. They're fixing to take a bunch of my property on Old Alabama Road. That's not something you want, but the betterment of the county and what's going to happen in the future. You know, like Steve's saying, though, you would not want to do it just for a shopping center or some sort of political issue. I believe that if you know me, I'm county commissioner, I'd have to have all my cards laid on the table. And I'm not prospering from it. There's not going to be a jack up in my bank account because I went in some committee behind closed doors and we decided to come over and take Tommy's property and invoke eminent domain, and then me turn around and make $1 million off the deal because of some project. I would also always want to see that clear fluidness, that everybody can see everything's hands up, we understand what's going on, and to have that set of fresh eyes in the county, say, listen guys, you come talk to me, if we got to do it, every card will be on the table, everybody understands what's happening, and there's nothing here that's not above board 100%. And there is going to be times when you have to invoke eminent domain for the betterment of the county and the betterment of the society. But it better be clear when you do it.
Candidate Tracy Lewis.
That one I would have to have more specifics on. But eminent domain, if it had to come into effect, it would have to be for the greater good of all of Bartow County. And, you know, as a child, my pawpaw had a store at 411 in Cass White Road, and he passed away in '77, and I was only 11. But I remember I was probably 7 or 8 sitting on his lap. He was a visionary, and I think I've been blessed with that. He said one day, Tracy, 411 is going to be 4-laned, and this store is going to be pushed back or gone. And that's going to be for the good of the county. We're going to be growing. So for progress, and as some others have said, for safety, it may be necessary, but to know the specifics, I would have to know them. And of course, in 2004, that's when I was chairman of the Carsville Bartow Chamber of Commerce, and Toyo Tire was wanting to locate here. And it wasn't even land that we had to put in eminent domain. It was land that they bought. But there was a group that formed, obviously, against it. And we used to call them NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Well, we've got to look at things for the greater good of Bartow County and not just for your backyard. Toyo is there. People did not like it in the beginning. Since we've been through a recession and it employs 600, 700, 800 people, people have come up to me who used to disagree and say, Tracy, I'm glad you did that and stood up for economic development, and as chairman of the chamber, my son works there now and he can ride his bike to work. So it would depend on the specifics.
All right, thank you. We had dozens of emails, of questions that were submitted by the public to me throughout literally the last 2 to 3 weeks. Some of them were more isolated toward the individual candidates that I simply did not think it would be fair to use. The upcoming question I'm getting ready to ask you is one of the ones that I felt was geared toward every candidate where you can answer it. And with that being said, if elected, will you rescind or repeal any ordinances adopted by Bartow County and specifically pertaining to firing range days and hours of operation? And we are going to begin with candidate Tony Tidwell. Not without getting more information on it. I mean, if you have told somebody they could do something and they've invested a lot of money in it, and then you go back and say, well, we changed our mind, you know, we don't be able to do that anymore. Now, there may be some other controls put in place, but I think it'd be taking that person's property illegally, really. But I think there may be some ordinances we need to review to keep it from happening again. Is there something else that can be done to help alleviate the problem? It'd be hard to go back and rescind an ordinance. Thank you. Candidate Steve Taylor.
Well, as as neighborhoods change and populations changes, I think that it would be appropriate for ordinances to change. If you're living in the country and there's nobody around you, of course it's okay to use firearms. But if the neighborhood grows up around you, then the ordinance needs to be changed. But just for public safety, if nothing else. But as soon as I entered the commissioner's seat, I can't think of anything right now, ordinance-wise, that I would change that's already in place.
Thank you. Candidate Mike Abernathy.
I've already had phone calls on this. Want to know if I'm going to be the next county commissioner. Want to know what I would do on this when I got in. Firing ranges, bars and gardens, the issues there, 7 days. We got the firing range in Taylorsville, and the issue Sunday shooting, and whether it invades the privacy of those people in that neighborhood. And the ordinances that are already there, they've already placed them. The houses are there, the properties were owned by the people before. You know, if it's an issue and a problem, it's something that's going to have to be looked at. But I don't believe I'd change it right off the bat. I believe we'd have to talk about it and see what all the legalities are of it. I just haven't researched it enough. But I know that's a big issue in Taylorsville, and I know it's a big issue of fairness, that all are fair firing range. You can't have one over here and one over here and not give them both the same benefits.
Thank you. Candidate Tracy Lewis.
Yes, thank you, Tommy. Ordinances are made to be changed depending on how we grow, how we developed, what all's involved. So, of course, if safety issues or economic development issues are strained because of an ordinance that is in place, then it needs to be looked at. But to know more specifics would be absolutely necessary for a commissioner to go to that point. And I assume with it being a question sent in that they are referring to the Taylorsville firing range, and that would just be getting out into the Taylorsville community and talking to the people. What do you want? How is this affecting you? What do we need to do to make this better? And that's what I want to do as commissioners, be in touch with the people and create an